Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let's take a look at using Safari profiles. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about it, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So Safari profiles are a new feature in macOS Sonoma that allow you to separate browsing, say, between personal things and work things, or if you do multiple things for work, separate those out into different profiles as well. To understand profiles, first make sure you understand how private browsing windows work. So here in Safari I could have a regular Safari window here and I could be logged on to different websites with my accounts. And then I can go and create a new private window. And that private window will be separate from my regular window. So while I'm logged into, say, a social media site here, in my private window I wouldn't be logged in. And I can in fact log in with a different account and then be logged in with one account on the private window and one account in my regular Safari window. Now with private browsing, as soon as you close the window there, everything that you were logged into in that private browsing window you're now logged out of. That private browsing window doesn't exist anymore. And when you create a new one, you're not logged into anything. So now you would have to relog into sites, perhaps using even different accounts. You can have multiple private windows open, but when you close any of those, they're gone forever. The website data, also known as cookies, and the history are completely gone. And if you're logged into something, you now have to log into it again in a new private browsing window. And anything you do in a private window doesn't affect what you're doing in regular Safari windows. Now profiles take this to another level. With private browsing windows, as soon as you close it like that, it's gone. But with profiles, you can actually bring it back. They're very similar to private browsing windows, but they're persistent. Still separate from your regular browsing window, but persistent if you were to close it and reopen it. Here's an illustration of how it works. In a regular Safari window, you might be logged into, say, 3 different sites. Maybe a social media site, maybe a banking site, maybe a shopping site. And you may have a long history of web pages that you visited. If you were to close that window, it's gone. But if you were to open it again, everything returns. You're still logged in to those various sites. You still have the same history. That doesn't go away just because you close the window or even quit Safari. As a matter of fact, the amount of time you're logged in is determined by the website itself. So for instance, a website like a social media site might keep you logged in for about 2 weeks before it asks you for your password again. A shopping site maybe 2 months. But a banking site may have a really short time limit of like 5 or 15 minutes before it automatically logs you out. But otherwise you'll stay logged in even if you close the window or quit Safari and launch it again. Now if you were to open a private window while you're logged into these sites, in the private window you're not logged into any of those sites at all. Now you can go and log in with different accounts on the same sites. So in my regular Safari window I could be logged into site A with one ID, and on the private window I'm logged into site A with a different ID. And notice also that private windows don't keep a history. So the history is not really there. You can actually go back. You can use the back button. So there's some history there. But that's completely gone once you close the window. So if I were to close this private browsing window and open it again, you can see that I'm not logged into those sites anymore. The entire history and all the details of that previous window are gone when you close it. So your main window that you're using normally, and you can actually have multiple windows open, that's your personal profile. That's basically how you would think of just regularly using Safari. It's just called your personal profile now because everything's in a profile. And you can just use your personal profile as you did before. Here I've logged into a bunch of sites and I've got some sort of history going on. Now if I were to open a new window with a new profile, I'll call this Profile X, at the beginning I'm not logged into anything. But I can log in to different sites or maybe not log into sites as I want. And this could be different than my personal profile. Very similar to a regular browsing window and using a private window. Except that now I've actually got a history, a separate history for this profile than I do for the personal profile. Now if I were to close the window with this profile, it's gone. But if I were to open it again, I'm still logged into those sites and I still have that same history. It doesn't go away like it does with a private window. So it's separate like a private window, but it's not temporary unlike a private window. In fact, I can open up another profile. Here I've got Profile Y and I start off not logged into anything there. I can log in to websites with even a different account and have a different history there as well. And I could close one profile, close the other profile, open one up, open the other one up. It remembers. It's like having 3 separate browsers, but they're all in Safari, just as different windows. So let's look at how to use it. So to create a profile, you need to go to Safari, Settings, and then go to Profiles. And then click Start Using Profiles. Now your first profile is your personal profile. So you're creating your second one here. I'll call this one Work. And I'll give it another icon, maybe a different color. I can also choose what I want to use for favorites. This would appear at the favorites bar in the top if I have it turned on. So I can create a new bookmarks folder to use as favorites just for this profile. Or I can use an existing folder. So I could have the same bookmarks as my favorites for multiple profiles. That's no problem. Or I can have a separate one for each. If I go to different websites for work as I do for my personal profile, it may be handy to actually have favorites pointing to a different folder. Now I click Create Profile. And I can see I've got 2 profiles here. I've got Personal, the default, and I can rename that if I want and change the symbol and color. And the Work one, and I can change the things that I set up before. I could even change what happens when I open up this Work profile with what happens with the new window and what happens with the new tab in that window. And I can even change which extensions are active for each profile. So if there's a profile I only use for work and not other things, I could have it on in one profile, off in another. And you can see I could add new profiles here with the plus button and create as many as I need. So now I've got 2 different windows open and you can see them identified here at the top. This is the personal profile window. This is the work profile window. And if I were to create a new one, all I need to do is go to File and you can see I create a new personal window, the initial profile that's there at the top. But I can also create other windows for other profiles. So a new work window, and I've got the work profile. So now these would be separate. Anything I would log into with my personal profile, I would not be logged in to on my work profile. So I can log into separate accounts, or maybe on my personal profile I'm not logged in, say, to Google at all, but on my work profile I am. And you could click this button here at the top of any window and switch profiles if you want. And note that you can have multiple windows open with the same profile. So I can create a new work window and you can see I've got 2 work windows. So these would be like 2 browser windows in Safari. They'd both be logged into the same websites, have the same website data, cookies, and the same history. But these 2 windows would be separate than from this one, which is using the personal profile. So as I mentioned before, you could use this to log into different accounts in different websites depending upon which profile you're using. Another way to use it would be to not be logged into things. So you could also use it like this, where with your personal profile you're logged into one website, say a social media website, but really nothing else, nothing for work. Then you've got a second profile and that's for work. So you're not logged into your social media website, but you are logged into a specific work website. And then you have a third one where you're not logged into either your social media website or your work website, but maybe another website that's for something else. So as you switch between these profiles, you have greater privacy in browsing each of these 3 websites in 3 different situations. So there are a lot of different uses for this, but not everybody needs to use profiles. I think most Mac users can just use Safari as before, just without profiles, just browsing the web as normal. But if you do find that you switch modes between a home or personal mode and a work mode, or maybe you have several different jobs that you use your computer for, then you can use profiles to keep those separate as you browse the web with Safari. So I hope you found this useful. If you've been wondering what Safari profiles are and whether or not they can be useful for you. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.